Hello, Jay Jinendra, Pranam, and good evening to everybody. Thank you once again for joining us for our Oshwal Health webinars. Today's topic is very important, but before we get to our subject matter for today, I want to welcome Jayesh Pai, who will be reciting the Navkar mantra for us, and then I will introduce today's topic. Thank you, Jayesh Pai.
Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Uvajjayanam. Om Namo Lo Esabvasahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro. Sabbapavapanasano. Mangalanam cha Sabbeshim. Padmam Havai Mangalam. Arhanto Bhagavanta Indra Mahita Siddhascha Siddhi Sthita Acharya Jina Shasano Natikara Pujya Upadhyayaka Sri Siddhanta Supathika Munivara Ratnatraya Radhika Panchaite Parameshtinah Pratidinam Kurvantu Vo Mangalam Kurvantu Vo Mangalam. Oshwal Association of the UK તરફથી આપ સૌને પ્રણામ. આપ સર્વનું આરોગ્ય સુખાકારી સારી રહે અને ખૂબ સારા કાર્ય કરવાની શક્તિ દેવ ગુરુ અને ધર્મ પસાએ પ્રાપ્ત થાય એ જ પરમાત્માના ચરણમાં વંદના અને પ્રાર્થના.
Thank you very much, Jayesh Pai, for reciting the Navkar mantra for us and starting us off for this session. So the Oshwal Health webinars, as we know, started way back in March of 2021, and we have covered so many topics that are of relevance to our community and to improve the health of the community and get us to understand a little bit more about some of the chronic conditions that are prevalent in our communities. Today's topic is very, very important. અને આજે આપણે વાત કરવાના છીએ બાળકોને ધાવણ દેવાની. આપણા જૂના જમાનાથી આજના મોડર્ન ટાઈમ સુધી પણ આ એક ખૂબ જ સારી શારીરિક વાત છે. અને આપણી સાથે આજે છે અંજલિબેન માલદે, જે બર્મિંગહામમાં છે અને બર્મિંગહામથી આપણે જોઈન કરી રહ્યા છે. અને ટ્રુલી ગ્લોબલ હેલ્થ ઇવેન્ટ્સ છે. તો આજે આપણા સાથે છે બે યંગ મધર્સ, આરતી અને આશની, જે બંને પોતાના બાળકોને ધાવણ આપી અને મોટા કરી રહ્યા છે. સો આજનું આ ટોપિક છે breastfeeding, is it for good health, and જે આપણી ડિબેટ ચાલે છે good health versus lifestyle. સો આ બધા સ્પીકર્સ આપણે સમજાવશે, એમનું પોતાનું એક્સપિરિયન્સ આપણા સાથે શેર કરશે અને આપણે એમાંથી જે જાણવાનું મળશે એ ખાસ કરીને અંજલિબેન આપણે એક્સપ્લેન કરશે કે નાના બાળકો માટે, એમના માતાઓ માટે અને આપણા એન્વાયરમેન્ટ માટે આ કેમ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ છે. આજનું આ સેશન આપણે શરૂ કરીએ પહેલા મારે થેન્ક યુ કહેવું છે તુષારભાઈ શાને, who is the former trustee of Oshwal Association of the UK. અને એમનું આ વિઝન હતું કે આપણે આ વેબિનાર્સ આપણી કમ્યુનિટી માટે કરવા જોઈએ. He has done a superb job with me for a number of months. આપણે March 2021 સ્ટાર્ટ કર્યા હતા વેબિનાર્સ અને અત્યાર સુધી આપણે ઘણા બધા ટોપિક્સ કવર કર્યા છે. So my grateful and huge thanks to Tusharbai for doing that work. અને આજે મારી એક ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ મીટિંગ છે, સો થોડીક વાર પછી હું જાઉં છું એ મીટિંગમાં અને તમને હેન્ડ ઓવર કરીશ આજના આપણા હોસ્ટને, Dr. Raji Punathar, who is a new trustee of Oshwal Association of the UK, newly elected, અને એમને આ portfolio, આપણે health no portfolio એ સંભાળવાના છે. So future, I'm not sure what the future holds for us, but I'm sure between us, we will be continuing to raise awareness of health issues in the community. અને મને ઘણા બધા જે લોકોના ફીડબેક મળ્યા છે એના પરથી લાગે છે કે આ કામ આપણે કન્ટિન્યુ કરવું જોઈએ. અને જે બધા ઓડિયન્સ અમારા સાથે આ જર્નીમાં માર્ચથી આજ સુધી છે એ બધાને હું ખૂબ અનુમોદના બધાની કરું છું. અને thank you so much for the support you have given us and the support you have provided for these webinars. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Rajvi Ben now. And just want to say a big thank you to Anjali Ben for today's preparations, and Atia Nashni for joining us from all the way in America. So thank you, Rajvi Ben. If you're ready, I'm going to hand over to you and leave now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prafula Ben. And thank you so much for all the work that you have been doing together with Dushabhai in presenting these wonderful webinars. I'm sure they will continue, and I'm sure you'll continue to do fantastic work within the community, and we are here to support all of that work, all the new EC trustees and myself included. My name is Rajvi Punathar. As Prafula Ben has said, I am a newly elected trustee to the OA UK, that's the Oshwal Association of the UK, and I have actually twin hat portfolios. One is health and well-being, but also education, and fantastically these webinars fall in both those camps. By background, I am a research scientist. I have been a cancer research scientist for 20 years, and I work at the Francis Crick Institute. I am also a mother, and this subject that we're going to talk about today is quite close to my heart. I breastfed all three of my children, who are now grown up, and the youngest one until she was 2 years old. This was many years ago, and we know so much more about the benefits of breastfeeding. I know it's not always easy, but I think we're going to hear from Anjali now. I'd like to introduce Anjali Malde. Now, Anjali Ben is an antenatal and infant feeding officer for the National Health Service in Birmingham, and she works in the community. She's nursed both her daughters for 2 years, and they are now grown up, they're teenagers. And in today's session, she's sharing her experience, and she's going to explore with us the benefits of breastfeeding. So Anjali, over to you.
Thank you, Rajvi Ben. So I'm going to just start share my slides. Bear with me. Hello everyone. Jai Jinendra. So, like Rajvi Ben said, I am an antenatal and infant feeding worker for the NHS in Birmingham. I support moms with breastfeeding in the community once they're home from the hospital. And I'm also an antenatal, I also do antenatal education. So let's find out a little bit about why breastfeeding is an investment in health. So we'll talk a little bit about the challenges we face as a mom, as a family, as a community, and as a country. The benefits of breastfeeding to all of us, how to breastfeed, basically just getting clued up about how to breastfeed, and where and when to seek support and how to seek support. So let's just say there was a company out there that developed a product that was completely nutritionally balanced. It was delicious. It was a drug that prevented and cured diseases. It hardly cost anything to produce, and it met all the demands of the consumers. Can you imagine where the shares for this company would be? They would definitely be at the top of the stock market. And the individuals or the scientists who developed this product would probably win the Nobel Prize. But I'm sure you've guessed by now that this miraculous substance is breast milk. And women have been producing breast milk since the beginning of human existence. So let's look at a little bit about the state of where it is and in a global context as well. So these are the statistics in England. 3 out of 4 babies will start to breastfeed in hospital. So the initiation rate is about 74%. That drops to about 44% at 6 weeks and at 36% at 6 months. And how does that compare to some other countries? So the statistics in the Nordic countries, at 6 months, it's quite high. It's at about 80% in Norway, 65% in Sweden. In Kenya, which we're all familiar, many of us are familiar with as a country, it's almost double at 61%. In India at 55%. We think the US we'd be more comparable to the US, but even that's considerably higher at 49%. So the World Health Organization actually recommends that you exclusively breastfeed your baby for the first 6 months of life. This means that there's nothing else, no water, nothing, just exclusively breastfed. Medication obviously is allowed, but this rate in England is only 1%. So just 1% of our babies are exclusively breastfed until they're 6 months old, whereas the WHO recommends this should be ideally 100%. It is quite shocking, and the UK has the lowest rates in the whole world. This actually costs our NHS about £48 million annually for some really basic illnesses that you get admitted to, just things like ear infection, gut infection, diarrhea, vomiting, and it costs the NHS £48 million. Anyway, so the World Health Organization also recommends that you start your solids at 6 months, but you still continue breastfeeding, and you continue breastfeeding to up to 2 years old and beyond. And you'll hear from one of our case studies who is still nursing her toddler. So let's see why do we face or why are statistics so poor? What are some of the challenges? Yes, we face challenges as a country where there's obviously cuts in funding, and so our public health initiatives are going to suffer. But there are many things we can do as an individual, as a mom, as a family, as a community that can help. So as a mom, inform yourself, learn about the knowledge of benefits, and inform yourself or get clued up about how to breastfeed. We live in families where it's normal to formula feed. It's seen as normal or nearly as good as breastfeeding. And we need to change our attitudes around breastfeeding in public. So I run a support group every week, and I get moms come in and they tell me, oh, I had to breastfeed in the toilet of that restaurant or in the coffee shop. And I just said, really, would you eat your lunch in the toilet? And, not really. So why are you giving your baby the lunch in the toilet? And it's the same. I mean, you can see in this picture where sometimes moms are asked to cover up when they're feeding. It still happens in plenty of public places. They're asked to cover up because they're breastfeeding. And I say the same, when you're eating lunch, do you cover yourself up? Again, even sometimes in our own homes, when you're feeding, sometimes you have to, somebody will say to you, do you mind going into the room to feed? Don't feed in front of the family or in front of friends. But again, it's very antisocial, isn't it? You don't eat your lunch by yourself in your own room. It just doesn't make sense. So it is our collective responsibility to support breastfeeding. So we've talked a bit about the challenges. Let's look at the makeup of breast milk. So I think this visual, this slide probably explains it all. breast milk has at least 34 important ingredients that are not found in formula milk. It is a living substance. So how does it work? Mom's body identifies the viruses and the bacteria in babies' bodies. You then make the antibodies and you transfer it through your breast milk. And this protects the baby's immune system. Your milk also, like, it switches on a gene in the baby's bodies. It produces a hormone called leptin. And this hormone tells your baby, oh, my tummy is full, I don't need any more milk. So you will never overfeed a breastfed baby. Again, you're preventing childhood obesity. Your milk contains oxytocin. It's a love hormone, and it induces feelings of well-being in both you and baby. So your milk, mom's milk, is completely unique to that baby, and it changes according to baby's needs. Okay. So now we'll talk about the benefits to baby, mom, environment. So what are the benefits to the baby? Basically, every part of the baby has some benefits from breast milk, and there's some I haven't added on here. One of them being the brain. I was just reading an article today, I think in the Times newspaper. It said that if you've breastfed your child, it actually helps them well into their secondary years. I haven't finished reading the article, but it's something else that's interesting as well. So you can see from this slide that every part of baby's body has benefited, and even going into adulthood, where as an adult, they will have lower cholesterol. It lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes. Yeah, and you'll just have far less trips to the A&E with your baby. What are the benefits to mom? So breastfeeding will lower the risk of reproductive cancers for mom, both breast and ovarian. And I think the research is now, they're saying that it can almost lower it by 30%. I love this one, where you can burn extra calories. You can actually burn up to 500 calories if you just exclusively breastfed. It's a good reason just to sit on the couch and do nothing and feed your child. It's great. It reduces your risk for type 2 diabetes. And it lowers your risk for osteoporosis. This is really amazing in the way it works, is that the baby when the baby's feeding, it's drawing out calcium from your bones. And so you are making new calcium for your bones. It's like giving your bones a little bit of a revamp. And so your risk for osteoporosis is delayed. Yesterday, some of you may have heard, there was a webinar on mental health. So breastfeeding is actually really good for maternal mental health, and it lessens the severity of postpartum depression. And just generally, it's available, it's on tap all the time. It's the right content, the right temperature. You don't really need to do anything to it, and it's there even in the middle of the night. You don't need to worry about sterilizing. Nothing. And if any of you enjoy traveling before you start solids for the baby, it's actually a great time to travel with the baby, because all you do is just put them on the breast. It's great. We should all, I guess, be concerned about the environment right now as well, especially in the state it is in. Breast milk is the ultimate sustainable food. There is no waste, there's no packaging, no fuel, no transportation. And if you are formula feeding, it can cost you about 400 to 500 pounds and more, depending on the type of formula you buy per year. So it's great for the environment. So how do you breastfeed, or how do you initiate? What happens? How do you go about it? So let's just examine this. Your baby is born, you've given your baby, right? What do you do next? So this is how you get clued up about breastfeeding. The first thing is plenty of skin to skin. Let them put the baby on you. This is what's going to initiate the breastfeeding. They'll give you about an hour and a half at the hospital like this. You can always request more, but this is where the baby can smell. They know your smell, so they can smell you. They know where the breast is. They know where the milk is. They can crawl up to the breast, and this is how they start their breastfeeding journey. So always, the first thing that you do is a lot of skin to skin. Secondly, know what a comfortable latch is, how to position, how to latch baby on. If you are aware of this before you go into hospital, it makes it a lot easier. Learn a little bit of hand compression, or how do you do hand compression. Hand compression can also help you antenatally, because you can harvest some colostrum and take it to the hospital with you in case you may have had an emergency C-section or something, you're out of it, you can use that. But hand compression can also tempt baby to the breast in those early stages. So that's something else that you should know. The other thing is learn about feeding cues. To us, sometimes when we see a baby cry, we use that as a feeding cue, but that's really late. Just as an example, let's look at us when we're really hungry, we're starving, we're going to probably reach out for the junk food. You reach out for a packet of crisps or a chocolate bar. But if you are not that hungry, you're going to take time to prepare the meal. You're more likely to prepare a healthy meal. And it's the same for the baby. If baby is not that hungry, he's going to take time at the breast, make sure he's latched on properly, and then you're not struggling with that. But if baby starts crying, if baby's frantic and upset, it's hard for them to latch on. They're not going to latch on, and you're going to be upset as a result, and then you reach out for the bottle. So do you see there's quite a vicious cycle here? So learn what the early feeding cues are. Never top up with formula unless it's absolutely necessary. So if you top up so breast milk works on a completely supply and demand basis. The more the baby feeds, the more milk you will produce. If you top up with formula, what happens is the baby may skip a feed. So there's these little workers telling your brain, okay, my baby doesn't need that milk, so stop producing the milk. And that's what helps. That's how your milk supply becomes less. So try and avoid topping up with formula unless obviously there are medical reasons you may need to top up for. And the last thing, never be afraid to ask for support. Just inform yourself. Where do you call? Where do you look on the internet? Who do you call? There are lots of places out there, and I will go through that at the end as to where you can look for support. So I think, Dr. Rajvi, this is where I'm going to end to give my case studies a chance to talk, because I think I have spoken far too long, and I'll come back and finish off the presentation. So I'll hand it over to you, and I'll stop sharing my slides.
Thank you so much, Anjali. That was absolutely fantastic. A really good overview of all the variety of benefits from health of the mother, health of the baby, and right across. I hope you can all see me and hear me. I think you've just frozen a little bit there. That should be fine. So now I'd like to go over and introduce our speakers. We are truly transatlantic today. And the first speaker we're going to have is Aarti. So I'd like to introduce Aarti Gosrani. So Aarti grew up in London and currently lives in Austin, Texas. She's nursed both her daughters and is currently nursing her toddler, and she will briefly talk about normal term weaning. After Aarti, we will have Ashni Asher. Now, Ashni also grew up in London and she lives in New York City with her husband Anand and daughter Nala, who is 5 months old and exclusively breastfed. So first of all, we'll go over to Aarti in Austin. Over to you, Aarti.
Thank you, Rajvi Ben. Hi, and Jay Jananda to everyone. So I live in Austin, Texas now, and I have two daughters, 6 years old and 3 years old. When I had my first daughter, I thought I would nurse her for about 6 months and maybe switch to formula or something like that. I had good support in New Jersey where I was then, and we had a lactation consultant come home to help get through the initial couple of weeks. My daughter had a 48-hour stay in NICU during which she was given formula, and she started getting used to the bottle. So we did have some initial challenges, but fortunately, the support was also provided in order to get her away from the formula and onto exclusive breastfeeding by the end of her second week. We continued to nurse, and she became a very quick and efficient nurser very quickly. She would nurse for about 3 to 5 minutes every couple of hours by the time she was 1 month old. This was very different to my expectation of her nursing for, an hour at a time or something. And when we got to 6 months, I realized that I didn't really want to give up, and we just continued at that point. Through my journey, I was able to find out a lot more about the benefits of breastfeeding in terms of protecting the babies, how the milk changes, how antibodies are created. And especially once I went back to work when she was 8 months old, it was a great way for us to be able to bond and just be able to provide her with what she needed and that connection after spending a whole day apart. When I ended up weaning her when she was about 2.5, and I was pregnant with my second daughter. And unfortunately, my pregnancy was a tougher one where I was pretty sick. So I wasn't able to keep down enough food for myself, let alone a toddler who was running around with lots and lots of energy. My younger daughter, I found that I actually did need lactation support in the first couple of weeks with her as well, because I'd become so accustomed to nursing an older child that I'd forgotten how tough it can be with a newborn. So I had a lactation consultant to come home and support with that. I also reached out to Lalesh International, which is very big in the US, and they provide a lot of peer-to-peer support, as well as Facebook groups. And I've been helping to admin a breastfeeding group online as well. With my second daughter, she is now 3, and with COVID in play, I've opted to nurse her for longer. And a way to provide antibodies and protection for her while she can't get a vaccine. Nursing a toddler is a very different experience. You don't have to look for hunger cues. They tell you pretty vocally when they're ready to nurse. It can also be a lot quicker, but it's still a great way to get them down to sleep in the evenings. And if she wakes up overnight, or if she has any kind of aches or pains, or she gets hurt, or she's upset about something, it's a really great way to pause, reconnect, and just provide her with the comfort that she needs. Nursing a toddler was not something I was expecting to do. I've been very lucky to find friends around me who have completed normal term weaning, and normal term weaning can happen anywhere between 2 years and 7 years. Someone once explained to me that milk teeth for children fall out around the age they do, because those are the teeth that provide a better latch for the children in their early days. And they fall out around when they're 6 or 7 years old. So for me, I see a lot of benefit from being able to do the normal term weaning. And I've been super lucky to have found so much support with friends, community, and the resources that we have available to us over here in the States. That's all from me. Rajvi Ben, would you like to do a second introduction?
Hi, thank you so much, Aarti. Yes, I will just quickly go over to Ashni now. I hope, Ashni Ben, if you are ready, come on the screen. Oh, brilliant. So we've actually also, as being quite transatlantic, can you hear me, everyone? I hope you can. As well as being quite transatlantic, we also have a few different generations here, and I think we have our youngest speaker we've ever had on an Owl Talk. So there you have Ashni, who is living in New York City with her husband Anand, and that's her daughter Nala, who's 5 months old, who's exclusively breastfed, and she is going to be talking about her lived experience. Over to you, Ashni.
Thank you, Rajvi-Ben. Thank you very much. This is Nala, who currently has hiccups and is going to be complaining probably quite a bit during this. So I'm going to hand her to my husband Anand, so I can speak to you in a more of a dedicated way. So thank you for having me on here. I wanted to just take a couple of minutes just to share how it's been for me and how it really is for me, because I'm living this experience at the moment, like many others that I know now. So what I wanted to share with you really is the honest truth. How has it been for me, and what has been possible for me to continue to breastfeed exclusively for this long, even when I didn't think that I would be able to, and I guess the impact that it's had really on my lifestyle, the positives and some of the challenges as well. So I knew I had the intention to breastfeed before I gave birth, but I hadn't really given much thought to anything post the birth experience. That for me was, the anticipation of that was so traumatic that I hadn't really thought about it other than I had the intention to. And I wrote it in my birth plan, hoping that if anything did happen to Nala when she was born, and we were separated for any reason, then that would be my preference. And I knew that if I could make it to a month, that would be a great achievement. And beyond that, of course, would be a bonus. But then once you're in and you see how it goes, the goalposts clearly keep changing. I naively thought that it just happened and that it was quite natural and quite beautiful. And friends and family that had done it or not done it, or I didn't really dig any deeper into their stories and any of the obstacles that they faced. And that for me just meant that I was quite blind going in, and those early days were a steep learning curve. So how's it really been? Like any journey, ebbs and flows, right? Overall, I'm completely filled with gratitude and awe that, as Anjali talked about, that my body can even take on this beat. And keep a happy, healthy baby growing and nourished solely on my milk. And despite advice from my pediatrician at the beginning to give Nala some formula to put on some additional weight, or the recent sleep deprivation really pushing me to start a bottle because it is a number of sleepless nights and I wanted a bit more of a break and a bit of a routine, I really trusted that the baby that I've had in front of me, her chubby cheeks, her infectious smile, the rate that she's growing has been enough to make me continue and commit to the choice that I continue to be making. And I've seen firsthand, and like many of you will, if you have breastfed or experienced or been around breastfeeding, that this milk really is magic. We all had COVID 6 weeks ago, and I was able to give her the antibodies after I had COVID, so she really didn't suffer at all. Every scratch, I've healed it with breast milk, every rash, it's pretty amazing stuff. And I genuinely believe that it is magic. So, however, it is tough, right? And I want to be open about that and honest about that. There's a sole responsibility on me to feed our baby, which means I haven't left her side for more than an hour. And everything that I eat and drink, everything I think through every day, multiple times a day, to make sure I get a balanced diet, because it's not just me that needs it. Additionally, I have to really take care of another body part in a way that I've never really thought about it. The maintenance of my breasts, so blocked ducts, sore nipples, biting from teething, engorgement, like lots of things that are painful and challenging. And it has to become part of my routine the same way that brushing my teeth is. And that is new, that is different, and that is something that I wanted to be honest about. So what has been critical for me doing this for so long? Like, what has made me able to do this for so long? My husband and I live here as expats, so I don't have any family here at all. So I don't have any external family support physically. I obviously do remotely. I'm really fortunate that my husband Anna took 3.5 months of paternity leave to support us and make sure that I had all the nutrition, all the emotional support, all of the extra pair of hands. And I'm really fortunate that he's a brilliant cook and a very hands-on father. So, and I really believe, as Anjali said, that it's a family choice and it impacts the whole family, and I need the whole family. But without having my family physically here in those early days, I didn't really know what support I needed. And like Aarti mentioned, I'm in the US and I gave birth in the US and saw a wonderful lactation consultant in the hospital. And really the best thing that she gave me was the confidence that what felt like the societal pressure that it was going to be against all odds, that breastfeed was not the easy option. She gave me the confidence to keep trying, to encourage me that when my milk did come in, that it would get easier. And most importantly, I connected with Anjali in those first few days. And Anjali took the time to support me, took the patience and the energy to educate me on milk, how to look after my breast, latch, position, my mental health. And to this day, she's still my first port of call for questions and guidance, and somebody who can just listen, somebody who can send me quick videos on how to help me, but also just think more holistically about things bigger than breastfeeding, and also thinking about sleep and illness and these things like that. And on Anjali's guidance, and I think she'll come to it later in the presentation, I also sought out La Leche League, an international support group for mothers. And sometimes I feel like, as I guess mothers or women, we are our biggest critics of each other. And actually, this group, I found other mothers who are really there to support your choices, free of judgment, no telling you how it should be done, but really supporting you to do things that feel right for you. They help me find my intuition, which I feel as a parent, I'm a new parent, so many of you will know this more than me, but is probably the most important thing that you can find in parenting, your intuition, trusting that inner voice. So that really was really helpful. So Anjali in those early days, a lactation consultant at the very beginning in the hospital, and then support from La Leche League. And then obviously my work, I have taken 8 months off from work as maternity leave, where standard maternity leave here in the US is only 4. So my employer is fantastic. And I think if I was really going back to work after 4 months, I would maybe having a different conversation with you right now. But that's really allowed me to settle into the breastfeeding rhythm, into becoming a mother, and to kind of continue to work exclusively in this way. So yeah, in summary, the journey's been wild and wonderful. This magic elixir that my body produces is incredible. And I don't know what I would have done out there if there weren't so many professionals and like-minded people that could support me to do that. Unfortunately, it does feel like there is some negativity around breastfeeding within our society, which is a real shame. So if I'm going to leave any of you looking to breastfeed or thinking about breastfeed with anything, it's to find your tribe that are going to stand by you, holding you up and giving you the strength and the education and the shoulder to cry on as you take on a breastfeeding journey at whatever stage you're at.
Thank you so much, Ashni. I'm just trying to turn my video on. There we go. Ashni, thank you. And it was so nice to hear you speak so frankly about the challenges. And it's not all wonderful and roses. And I think we have to really be honest about it, that there are some difficult times. I do remember the first time I had mastitis. It was horrendous. But I tell you, it's like anything that happens to you that's horrible, you never really have it again, because you're so aware that you never want it again, that you do really take a lot of self-care and you do what you need to do to not have it again. Thank you, all of you, for your wonderful talks. I'd like to invite all our speakers to please come on screen and unmute yourself. So we have some questions.
Sorry, can I interrupt, Rajivan?
Yes.
I have 4 more slides.
I'm so sorry, I forgot. So hang on, let's just let Anjali finish. You're doing the summary and some important information.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yes, please do go ahead, Anjali.
Sorry, so I'm just going to continue from this slide, but before I do that, I just wanted to say thank you to Ashni and Aarti. And Ashni, thank you so much for your kind words. I have really enjoyed chatting with you and learning through both your journeys. It's quite heartwarming. Anyway, so I'll finish off with the last 4 slides and then we can take our questions. So I think Aarti mentioned it, and so did Ashni. It's what we call responsive breastfeeding. So you feed the baby whenever you like it, but you also feed the baby just to rest and relax, to be close to your baby. It's a sensitive reciprocal relationship between mom and baby. And the baby will feed for all sorts of reasons as well. You know, they feed when they're tired, they're hungry, they're cold. It's a great tool for parenting, and I think Aarti put that really well. Use it as parenting. It's very easy. So let's just go through some common issues, common difficulties, problems that we can have. But I love this phrase where we say for most breastfeeding problems, there is a breastfeeding solution. And these are some of the common issues that I come across. So like I said, I run a support group every week. And this is what I see out there. It's usually always about, the most common one is usually about positioning and attachment. And if you don't correct that, you can end up with sore and cracked nipples. And like you said, Rajvi Bennett, you end up with mastitis. So it's a lot about your care, the caring of your health, of your breasts, and how you get baby to latch on. Another common problem is the lack of support. And I think Ashni mentioned that very well. I get moms come into my group and they come in and they say, oh, look, I couldn't latch baby on, baby was crying so much. And my mom said, just give a bottle, it doesn't matter. My mother-in-law said, oh, you just need to eat this so that this is better. It's, so I actually tell them, bring your moms in, bring your mother-in-law in, we'll all have a chat together. So it's just about being inform the whole family so they can support you in the way you need to be supported. Another one is getting inconsistent advice from different health professionals. And I think Ashni mentioned that as well, where you went to see a pediatrician. I mean, a pediatrician would tell you, okay, would support you with breastfeeding, but on the other hand, it's telling you, you may need to supplement with formula to gain weight. So if you are informed, you can challenge these, some of the health professionals. They're trying to do their best, but maybe they're just not as well informed. So some of these are the challenges that you face every day. So where do you seek support and how do you seek support? Surround yourself with people who are positive and encouraging, and just cuddle your baby at every opportunity that you get. So where do you seek professional support? So I'm talking about more in this country, it's midwives and health visitors, the infant feeding team at the hospital. There's an infant feeding team in the community, so I'm part of the community. There are lots of breastfeeding support groups, peer support groups. So I think in the US, you mentioned there's the La Leche League. Here there's a breastfeeding network. There's the Association of Breastfeeding Moms. They have a lot of support groups in children's centers. Because of COVID now, we have a lot of virtual groups as well. Most of these are generally free, or they take a small donation. And you both Aarti and Ashni mentioned lactation consultants. Yes, they can be expensive, but they have extensive experience and they can be great as well. And that's that's quite a US thing as well. But we do have lactation consultants here in the UK. Just be careful, because it's one of the terms anyone can use it quite freely. So make sure they're international board qualified. So you have to look for the words IBCLC. And here in the UK, we're very, very lucky. We have a national charity breastfeeding helpline. Many of you probably don't know about this, but that's the phone number. You can actually call that helpline, leave a message. Sometimes somebody will answer, or they will always call you back within the same day. They're open from like 9 in the morning to 9 at night. What you also need is your partner's support, your family's support, and your friends' support. And what I say to the partners, and I think Ashni said that very well, feed the mother, do the housework, hold the baby, to burp the baby or change baby's nappy. But the most important thing is be proud of mom and support mom. And just a word of warning, the internet isn't always right. Just be aware what you read on the internet, because it does prey on your anxieties a lot. The last thing, a lot of myths out there. This is what I face. I've just put the 10 most common things that I hear all the time. I won't go through each one, but I'll go through some of the more common ones that you may hear all the time. And one of them is always, my milk isn't enough. And that is just not true. As we've seen and heard, breast milk it works on supply and demand. The more you feed, the more milk you'll produce. So you're never going to run out of milk. The other thing is, be careful about what you eat. It's not entirely true. As long as you have a balanced, healthy diet, be careful, obviously, of caffeine and fizzy drinks. But other than that, you can eat anything pretty much that you want, as long as it's healthy and balanced. We get moms who come and say, oh, my mother-in-law said, don't eat beans, don't eat broccoli. Some say, oh, don't eat, Brussels sprouts. Just as long as it's a healthy, balanced diet, you're fine. And I'll touch on one more thing, is spacing out breastfeeds, because it gives your breasts time to fill up. Again, that's not true. Your breast will always, always have milk. It's a bit like a tap. As soon as baby latches, the tap's turned on, milk comes out. As soon as baby unlatches, it stops. It's great. So I'll leave this slide on and I'll let Dr. Rajvi take over now. I think I'm done. I think I have said enough.
Thank you so much, Anjali. So now we've got time for questions, and I'd like to ask all our speakers. Anjali, Ben, if you could just stop sharing, then we can have all your videos and your sound on. And for those of you watching, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, or tell us about your experience of breastfeeding or your issues with breastfeeding, you've got people here who have been through it, have lived the experience, and can really, really help. So I've got some questions here that I'd like to ask as well. So Anjali, just to start with you, at the beginning you had a slide which talked about the challenges of breastfeeding. And I think one of the biggest ones for me was return to work, because it's all very well to say to people, feed for 2 years. But for me, and I think this may be true of many people, that when you go back to work and your mind is elsewhere and you're rushing around, it's very, very difficult. Because I found, if you're at work, okay, people can use breast pumps, but my milk flow reduced a bit. And I think there's a whole play about stress and things like that. So I don't know if you can give some advice to women who are returning to work, and perhaps our panelists can as well, about what you did to keep that milk going. What did you change in order to help you?
So generally, because maternity leave here, especially in the UK, we try and carry it up to 6 months. So at 6 months, you've started solids, and you're generally returning back to work at this stage. So at this point, your milk supply is quite regulated to baby's needs. It's not going to change very drastically unless you're trying to stop, obviously. But yes, so there's a couple of things. What I recommend to moms is, say, you feed in the morning before you go, and you've tried to build up a little bit of a storage of milk previous to you going back to work. So you have a little bit of storage in the fridge or freezer, because if you probably know that when you freeze, it can last up to 6 months, your breast milk. So leave a little bit of storage. And then as soon as you come back from work, you can feed baby again. And you'll probably find, at least I know I did, that when I came back from work, baby was stuck to me from like 6 p.m. to almost 9 p.m., just feeding and making up for the whole day.
Yeah.
But these are ways you can get around it. Then they will feed at night to make up for it. But, by 6 months, you've started solid. So they start to get some of their nutrition from from elsewhere as well, and it'll all work around their time, like, you know, the times you just become in sync suddenly. But yeah, you try and build up a little bit of storage so it can sort of carry you along. And at 6 months, you don't have to bottle feed, you can go straight to the cup. You know, they can
really
drink from
point.
the cup as well, so you don't have to have a bottle as well.
Ashni or Aarti, anything you'd like to add to those comments?
So
Any other tips?
in the US, maternity leave is not, it doesn't exist, basically. I was lucky with my older one, I had up to 8 months. And when I went back, I was actually working mostly from home. However, I went from being with her every day, and when I had to commute 4 hours a day and be in the office at New York City. And I was pumping in the office in the US, partly because of the fact that no maternity leave, having a room for pumping. It was actually probably more regulations and protections around breastfeeding mothers compared to the UK. And it's pretty normal. Medical, like the insurance companies here give you a breast pump free of charge, because it's just considered a part of the package, you know, when you get your insurance. As Anjali said, you know, there's a lot of reverse cycling, which is when the baby switches from nursing in the day to nursing in the night. And that was really challenging, you know, being at work all day and then coming home, and then this little creature just clinging to you because they've missed you so much all day. Once my daughter was 1 year and she started going to I had a nanny, so she was at home all day. So I had, you know, pump milk in the fridge, freezer. But I found, because with exclusively breastfed babies, they sometimes struggle to do that transition to getting milk from a bottle by that point, or even a sippy cup. They just kind of want it on tap. So that was a part of it. But I think once she turned 1 year old, I decreased my pumping. So she was taking milk alternatives, either cow's milk, or my younger one prefers things like almond milk and coconut milk. So we've been doing that. But I wouldn't pump. But then whenever I was with them, I would still continue to nurse. And by that point, the body is so used to it. I've been nursing since 2015, pretty much. Yeah. So my body's so used to doing this. I just recently came to London for 6 days, and I didn't pump. And obviously I didn't nurse my child because she was back home. And I came back and we were able to reestablish a nursing relationship, and she was still able to nurse. So it's incredible what the bodies are capable of doing.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I did also just revert to just doing the nightly ones towards the end as well. There's something I do want to ask you. You know, within our culture, we do have these wonderful, I think, I wouldn't say Ayurvedic, but home remedies. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed is the katlu. Some of the ladies here will know about this special sort of laddu that you're given, you know, after you've been given birth, and it's meant to build up your strength and build up your breast milk. I personally love katlu. I would have it even today, but I found that really useful. I also found eating coconut really useful. And I also found, I know you were saying that a lot of people, perhaps you want to feed and not go in another room. But for me, I found going somewhere quiet and peaceful actually helped with my letdown, which is, you know, when the milk comes, and drinking a lot of water. So I'm just wondering if any of you, and the other thing was that Vavring Vakumba. I don't know if anyone still does that, which are these little herbs. You make a little poultice of it, and then you boil up this great big vat of water, let it cool down, and then drink that. Now, Anjali, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. It's part of our culture, you know, it's part of our Gujarati heritage. I, for one, I'm in favour of that because it definitely can't do any harm. What are people's thoughts on this?
So shall I go first? Am I on? Yeah, I'll go first. Now I just say there is really nothing that, like, there's no herbs, no special cookies, you know. Now it's more lactation cookies, which is similar to the katlo. I don't think there is anything that really works in terms of food or supplements. Yes, the katlo works in the sense because it's very heavy. I mean, it's very laden with calcium. So this is where you're replenishing your calcium. And that's why you're probably feeling a lot stronger. It's also giving you a little bit of energy, because breastfeeding is hard work. It's hard work for you and the baby. So it's replenishing your energy. When moms ask me about herbs and supplements, like you said, I said, if it makes you feel good, if it makes you feel in your mind that you're producing the milk, fine, by all means, as long as it's not harming you, take it, all the better. Because nowadays there's things like oat milk and is it fenugreek tea? I think it's that methi, and I think we put it in that wapumba, wavri, is the same thing. Some of the similar things, yeah. So, if these supplements make you feel like you're having a letdown or you're producing the milk, by all means, do it, as long as there's no harm in it. But there are things like just a lot of skin to skin in the early stages that will help with the milk production.
Ashley, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I had some of those things, fortunately, because my mother and my mota babi and they posted it to me, and
fantastic.
So I had all of that stuff. That the methi doesn't make you smell very good at the beginning. I'm sure my husband will probably tell you all, but it made me feel fine. Like, it made me feel good. Here in the US, they encourage oatmeal every day and flaxseed every day, and it's, to be honest, it just feels like a balanced diet. That is help making you feel good with anything that makes sense. And I don't have any caffeine anymore because I think my daughter doesn't sleep very much in the day, so I don't have that, just in case that makes a difference. But there's no evidence either way from my experience.
Yes, Aarti, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was lucky to have both my mom come out and my mother-in-law, because I had both my kids before the whole COVID thing, so traveling was a lot easier. I think one of the things about having like the Vavri Vapumba and even the Suvanupani as well, and I think just having all that in front was helpful because it just meant I stayed hydrated. And I think staying while a specific herb or something doesn't help, being hydrated is an absolutely key thing in it. With my first daughter, I did actually limit caffeine and all those things. By my second one, I needed to keep some caffeine in my system to keep me going through the day with a newborn and a toddler. Yeah, I didn't restrict the diet too much. But I think having things like in the diet, the spinach and ringra, and certain things which definitely helped, just building the strength, because then, as Ashley said, it's just a part of a balanced diet.
No,
but I will say with the methi, there is a reason to be careful, because I think I overdid the methi first time round, and it did have an impact on how much my daughter was spitting up and things like that. And the lactation consultant at that time, she did suggest reducing it, which I was grateful to do, because I really don't like it. The methi is the only thing from the diet which I really didn't like. So, yeah.
Yeah, got away with it.
Can I just add that, there are moms in a lot of the poorer countries who actually, they themselves are slightly malnourished, but when the baby feeds off these moms, the baby will get all the nutrients the baby needs. It's the mother who really suffers. So when we say balanced diet, and like Aarti said, you need to stay hydrated. So it's all about, getting yourself in a better state. It doesn't really as such affect the milk supply. If the baby is latched on, and the baby will get the milk regardless. It's the mom who may suffer, mom's health may suffer.
So another question, and I've actually personally experienced this, is the disapproving looks you sometimes get when you're feeding what doesn't look like a baby to people, like a toddler. And, people can be quite make comments. It can even be other women and mums. How do you handle that? And what would you suggest that you say to those people?
I'll let Aarti, do you want to go first? And I'll say what I have to say, or what I advise my moms to say when they're feeding a toddler. But I think you probably experience this now. So I'll let you go first.
Interestingly, I haven't experienced it. If anything, I've had lots of positive comments. When I tell people I'm still nursing a 3-year-old, I think it's been more like a wow, it's amazing that you're still doing it. where I live, there's quite a few people who have nursed a little longer. So I've been fortunate in that respect. But the other side of it is that we nurse mostly in the evening before bedtime now. So we're not out and about. I can't remember the last time I would have nursed her when we're out and about somewhere. But when people do experience, if I ever see another mom nursing an older sibling, like an older child, I will just like treat it normally. And the other thing is, my children are so used to seeing nursing babies, and that makes a big difference. And that's kind of, society changing at the very core. The more children see it and accept it, it's okay. I started with a nursing cover in the early days, and at the point I was like, I can't do this. I found some great tops, which were really like accessible tops, which have like a slit on the side, so you can nurse without feeling like you're being exposed to everything. Yes. Both my kids have great fear of missing out. So for me, finding a quiet spot was usually helpful anyway. So I tended to try and go a little away, but I didn't really worry. I haven't worried. And I think my story is probably a little different to what other people have experienced. And I'll let Anjali talk to that.
So I nurse toddlers as well. And I guess it's funny, but when you sort of get to that stage, you sort of don't care anymore. You've sort of passed that stage and you think, say what you like. I know what I'm doing, kind of thing. But not everyone's as confident. So when I get moms into my support groups and they tell me about, not being comfortable, so we try and tell them to try what we call the sandwich answer. First you it's like, be nice, just say, inform them what you're doing, and then you can slip in kind of thing, mind your own business. And then, you just, oh, sorry, I think she's just said, and then you just say, you carry on with it.
Yes. Hello, I'm not sure if we've lost Anjali. Ashley, can you see?
It keeps breaking up.
Just breaking up. Sort of answer back is I'm not always able to.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess if it's okay, Dr. Rajvi, I just wanted to say one last thing. I think there's a lot that needs to be done around the societal conversations around however mothers decide to feed their baby. And I'm lucky that I live in a very liberal place like New York, that I can openly breastfeed. I never have to go in the toilet. I never have to do any of those things, and I feel confident and comfortable doing that. But I think to take anything away from this conversation, I just think all of us as women, as parents, need to raise all mothers up, however you decide to feed your baby, whether it's formula, whether it's breast milk, whether it's a combination, whether it's challenging, however it is. And I think that societal change, I think webinars and conversations like this are really pivotal to helping do that. Sorry, my baby is wants her voice heard. So yeah, just let's all just take that conversation and just raise each other up, however we decide to feed our babies, in whichever way we do that, in an open and honest way.
Great. So listen, unfortunately, we've lost, I think, Aarti. Yeah. Unfortunately, she had to go and tend to her little toddler. I think we're going to now, I think it's time to call it a day. We're getting a very unstable internet connection. I'm really afraid that we're going to lose you all. I'd really like to thank you so much for sharing your stories and your expertise. For all of the viewers out there, this is going to be recorded. So if you have friends, and I know not everyone can dial in and tune in live, especially when they're nursing or have got kids, tell them this will be on the Oshwal YouTube channel. They'll be able to click on it and watch it at any time. So it's up there permanently. And I'd now like to say thank you for the final time to our speakers. There will be more health webinars and health events coming up within the Oshwal community. So watch this space and we will let you know when the next ones are happening. Thank you very much to everyone.